Hello everybody, I wanted to thank Carnophage again for pointing me in the direction of Norse mythology. I also wanted to, well, not really apologize, but just say, the reason why I haven't been making videos lately is because I'm currently in the middle of transferring schools. I have to get letters of recommendation and build a portfolio and write essays and stuff, and this break has been the most stressful break out of all the breaks in the world, so I've been really busy with that, and yeah, so I'm going to talk once again back to sort of the whole Carnophage pointing me in Norse mythology. At first, when I was reading, I was kind of just skimming the surface and just reading about the different characters within a lot of the poetic eddas, like Fenrir, and trying to draw sort of, I guess, conclusions based, or not really conclusions, but trying to see if there were any allegories, like trying to see if Great Wolf Sif was very similar to Fenrir. I was trying too hard to make, the sort of like have these black and white qualities, trying to translate them, I guess is the proper term. Translate one character into another, and none of them really did. And so I was kind of confused because there's all this symbolism and all this great stuff from Norse mythology that's in the series, but I couldn't find any connections in terms of the actual story. So when I was reading about the Yggdrasil, everything kind of just like hit me all together at once, and it blows my mind because I'm starting to realize that Greek mythology and like Buddhism and a lot of the Shinto symbolism and stuff that's within the Dark Souls series is actually all sort of supported by Norse mythology. Like all of the different themes that you encounter when you go through sort of the story, they're all kind of tied together by Norse mythology. It's sort of like Norse mythology acts as its foundation. It's sort of the most important influence in the series in terms of the mythos that influenced a lot of the things that they did. So I thought that was sort of my epiphany that I had, and I was really excited about that. And so I wanted to start off with the Yggdrasil, which is the tree of life. The Yggdrasil is sort of this tree that starts in the underworld and it grows up, and then it sort of supports society kind of like a nest. And then at the very tips of the branches, the gods sort of hold court and judge everything that's happening below. So I kind of drew a little picture. We have Ash Lake, all the other trees, and then there's like Lordran chilling up here. And then we have the Great Hollow, when we have to actually go through the Great Hollow and leave the tree. There's actually like down here, this little black stuff is supposed to be like the demon runes and all that stuff. It doesn't actually look like that when you leave the Great Hollow, but that's sort of what, that's sort of how it's constructed. And when you actually stand on top of the Firelink Shrine and look out, you'll see that everything's being supported by tree branches. And you'll look out to your right if you're standing on sort of like the crow nest. You'll see that there's a bunch of clouds where there should be like ocean or something, assuming that Lordran's an island. So you'll see a bunch of clouds, so it's kind of like we're just suspended in the sky. Also, in order to get to Lordran, we actually had to be picked up by a crow. So it's to be assumed that crows and stuff can travel in between these trees. And it can also be assumed that anybody could travel in between trees in order to get from point A to point B. I mean, we see the Onion Knight and his daughter. Their final quest line is on Ash Lake, so they're able to make it through the Great Hollow. And it sort of makes me wonder, maybe if all these other worlds, like if all these other countries like Karam, and and Domel and Domnall or whatever it is, are all their own trees, like are all their own specific trees. And I thought that was a really neat idea. I also like how in Boletaria, when we fall below the Nexus, we see the Old One, who is actually essentially just a tree. He's made up of trees, and he's hanging out on Ash Lake. Like, all of that symbolism is there. It's all, everything is about trees. Like, everything old and important is supported and, I guess, held together by Yggdrasil. And then something, for those of you who have seen like the Disney version of Hercules, you're probably familiar with the three fates. It was those three hags who, one of them had like sort of a spool of thread. The second one would measure it, and then the third one would cut it, and it would dictate who lived and who died. And somebody brought this up, and at first I was kind of iffy about it because I feel like somebody was saying, if you haven't noticed, the three main Firelink Shrine maidens, or not the Firelink Shrine, but the three fire maidens, Quaylon, the Firelink Shrine woman, and the the women wearing brass armor in Londo, they're all the fire maidens who are able to upgrade your flasks, and they're all women, and there's 3 of them. And, you know, that's really important. And at first I was kind of iffy about that because we also have the dragon, and we also have Guinevere. But aside from them, they don't mention anything about being fire maidens or firelink shrine maidens or whatever. They also, I mean, the brass armor knight specifically says that she is the fire maiden of Londo. Like she mentions that is her occupation, and that if she sees any of the other fire maidens, they have to kill one another. Um, and it makes sense. I mean, you have one in sort of heaven, you have one in the real world, and you have one in the underworld. And then you also have sort of one that's completely and entirely separate from them in a different tree, which is the dragon. But aside from that, we have these 3 fundamental women who are sort of a part of the Firelink Shrine. They can't leave. They're kind of bound to it. And the 3 or not the 3 fates, but the Norns is what they're called in Greek mythology. They're tied to the tree. They can't leave it. They just sit there and they measure life and death, and they kind of dictate everything that's going on. And that's very much how the fire maidens are. They're able to give you, upgrade your flasks and dictate how long you live and stuff. So I thought that was pretty neat too. So I do agree with that idea or that theory that there's these 3 women who are the maidens. And then there's also, what else was it? Oh yeah, the primordial serpents. I'm just going to say the name here because there's a name in Norse mythology that I'm not going to try to pronounce. And it was a serpent that spread throughout the entire world, and that's exactly how the primordial serpents are. They're able to stretch and take us to, like the first kiln, or they're able to show up at Firelink Shrine, or they're able to show up wherever they want. They live in sort of like this underworld area where everything is connected, and they're able to spread out wherever they want, to go wherever they want, to influence whoever they want. And I thought that was another clever, reference to Norse mythology. And then, what else? I had more. Yeah. So there's that, I guess. Maybe that's it. Shoot, I feel like I had something else to say. Oh yeah, somebody mentioned, and I'm sorry I forgot your username, especially since our conversation happened very recently, and I don't have my mouse on me, so I can't actually look up your name right now. But we were talking about how what happened to the rest of the siblings in or Isolith's daughters, I guess. How it's to be assumed that there's Quelaag or Quelaag, then there's Quailon, then there's Quailana, so it's 3, and there's 7 of them. So then there's the ceaseless discharge, and there's a body right next to her, or right next to it. It's not really a body, it's just like clothes. So it's to be assumed that body, or whatever that is, was the 4th daughter, or that ceaseless discharge is the 4th daughter. I like to think that that ceaseless discharge is the 4th daughter because she has like a spider arm and stuff coming out of her back. And I thought that would be a really cool idea. The centipede isn't, we know that the centipede is either, maybe Isolith had a son who just was really clumsy or something. I'd like to think that. But it talks about a male who drops a ring or something into lava, and then it becomes this demon. And it's to be assumed that that demon is also that guy as well. Hold on, my dog is trying to get off my lap. And then what else do we have? We also have, oh yeah, so then we have the one that attacks us outside of the boss fight, the Chaos Bed boss fight. And then he was mentioning that in the Bed of Chaos, in order to fight her, you have 2 pillars on each side of Isolith in order to be able to hit her. And I thought that was a really interesting observation because they were saying that could essentially be the final 2 daughters. The fact that there's 2 of them on each side of her, which makes a lot of sense. And another thing that's really interesting that I kind of wanted to point out, and this is going really on a tangent, just kind of about everything, is that on the Yggdrasil, at the very bottom, when you go into the underworld, there are 3 pillars. And these 3 pillars essentially support the underworld. And I like to think that the Bed of Chaos became those three pillars, or became a part of those three pillars, because there are three parts of her, and she's starting to look like a tree. I also like the connection between the fact that the Bed of Chaos and, you know, the Old One were essentially people who craved or wanted souls or wanted power and started collecting all these souls, and then became a part of this tree. So it's like Yggdrasil and souls and sort of a lust for power kind of all end up in the same thing. I don't know. I really like the concept of becoming so demonic that you turn into a tree. I don't know why. I think it's because I like the artistic direction a whole lot of the way that, you know, like the Old One looked, and all the branches, and how when you go through the Great Hollow, it kind of feels like you're going through the Old One again when you snap the branches and stuff, and you're walking down. So, what are you doing, dog? What are you doing? Anyway, um, so yeah, that's really all I had to say. There's a lot of really neat references, so I suggest if that interests you to go. I mean, there's like the Wikipedia page, and then there's like a bunch of other stuff on the Yggdrasil. I'll post more images in the description and stuff of it, so that way you guys can see what it looks like. And yeah, I hope that enlightened you guys somehow. I don't know. So yeah.